Hello, in this video I'm really going to be talking about the use of OneNote for maths teaching, and particularly using OneNote as a interactive whiteboard or a whiteboard, maybe in the context of remote teaching, but possibly also in the context of actually teaching in class as well. It does assume that you have some instrument to write with, because for me the real powerful thing about OneNote is its support for ink. I'm sure that Microsoft didn't start off thinking that OneNote was going to be used as a tool for an interactive whiteboard. It is in fact a note-keeping app, which is the main thing that it started off with. It's been going for a long time now. So, for example, this is an example of a notebook. Although I've called it John's OneNote Practice, it's actually copied from my second year further maths group that I've just finished, and there's various tabs in here, and for example I can look at, and most of it I can look at, let's just say I go look at Further Pure. I've got various tabs, and each one of them will have a lot of, you'll notice that I do a lot of handwriting, but each one of them will have a lesson or more, a set of lessons in them, so it enables you to get very organised with your work. So there's my proof of demoise. But one of the things that's quite nice, one of the things that's really so powerful is the ability to embed things. So for example, here's a YouTube video I did, and it's obviously related to the notes here are probably exactly the same notes as are on the YouTube video to follow it, and that's actually embedded in the package, so it's not taking you to a link. You could actually just play that and then listen to it go. In fact, let's give it a go, see if it works. There we go, just press that and see if we get going. There's me on my YouTube channel.
So in this video we're going to prove
and that's embedded in the actual package itself, so people don't have to go to YouTube. It's actually there within the package. This is really powerful in actually online lessons or in any lessons in class, because you're not spending time going from one application to the next and thinking, oh, where is that thing I want, where is that YouTube clip I want, where is that GeoGebra file I want. It's there and it's embedded into the package. I should say I'm not going to talk about how to do any of this because that would take too long. I don't want the video. If you do a search, you'll find people will tell you how to embed YouTube clips and embed GeoGebra files into your OneNote. So that's the thing, it really does. I say there's my thing on matrices. I say you'll see there's a lot of handwriting in my work, because any maths teacher will tell you what they really want with any piece of software is ability to write. There it goes. Well, there is a copy of, obviously what I've done there is copied and pasted some questions and I've written some solutions. None of this is amazing, but it's just a capacity, and they're from old textbooks where I took some pictures of students to practice with. All this can be shared. It's a cloud-based application. It can be saved like any cloud-based application, so the students will see it reasonably immediately as you make changes. So as you do that, so the potential is, as I say, absolutely enormous. If we look at let's go back to what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of practice of how to use it as a whiteboard, but bearing in mind that it can do so much more than that. And so I hear a lot about people using Google's Jamboard for online lessons or Microsoft Whiteboard for online lessons. For a maths teacher, I don't think any of those packages, and I'll be honest, I've had a look into this quite a bit, I don't think those packages hold a candle to what OneNote can do. Okay, so here we go. So let's say I've written an example here. Don't really want to focus on the maths here, but I want to focus on the opportunities that it does for graphing and how we might go about doing a reasonably kind of enriching kind of demonstration on OneNote for when you're doing your online teaching or indeed teaching in class. Before we do that, let's just go to full screen so I can get the full screen up. And just imagine I now want a gap. Again, this is something you're not going to get from Jamboard or from Microsoft Whiteboard. I can put in a gap. I want to actually, I've just realised, what have I just spoken about? I've spoken about embedding YouTube files and GeoGebra files. Okay, so I've spoken about that. Okay, let's give that a little bit of a tick. There you go. I'm going to tick it with a highlighter. What else have I spoken about? I've spoken about the fact that basically OneNote is a note-keeping app. OneNote is a note-keeping app, so students can use this as well. And it just enables you to be organised without having to start up new files for every single piece of work. It's all there. And of course, they could be linked to individual files, individual PowerPoints, Word files or whatever. The links of them can be put into your OneNote here as well, not just YouTube and GeoGebra files embedded. You can embed files, but you can actually put links to them as well. So it's a note-keeping app. It enables even disorganised people like me to get to stay pretty organised, and I would imagine if students get to use it, it would enable students to get organised as well. So what else have I said? Oh, it's cloud-based. So any changes, cloud-based, any changes you make can be can be shared with students, and they will see those in real time. Relatively, depending on how it can take a few minutes or so for it to sync on students' devices. One thing I should say, it does have a phone app or a tablet app, so students who have phones and tablets will be able to see this and be able to see the changes you've made as well. Okay. As a lot of things do nowadays. So it's cloud-based. What else have I said? That's probably enough. I think it's the support for, I haven't really emphasised, it's the support for electronic ink that really makes it absolutely magnificent as a tool for maths teaching. Okay, because it supports. So that means that you can use it as a whiteboard, and it has got more than other. It's better than the alternatives. I don't think anyone who's actually used all of these things together to their full capacity could really dispute this. But there we go. You're welcome to write it down in the comments if you like. So it supports Elective, so it's better than alternatives, Jamboard or Microsoft Whiteboard or whatever. Why is it better? As I say, we'll see. Hopefully, you'll see that in the example. But I've shown one thing. I've managed to easily, although you could do this by dragging, of course, but it's kind of logical in that it goes downwards, whatever, and it's a little bit more like a piece of paper that you're writing on. Whereas your Jamboard or your Microsoft Whiteboard, it might be useful for certain subjects. You can go in all directions, but this very much goes downwards and to the right rather than just in any direction, which for me is something of an advantage. Okay, I think I'm enough to get on with the actual question here. Oh yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to say. I'm talking about OneNote without Teams at the moment. If you're working in an institution that has an app, has use of Microsoft Teams, you can do even more than I'm saying here, because what you can do is you can get students to, within your notes, have their own notebook, which they can They can copy your notes and put into their own notebook. They can upload tasks into there, so you can set homework via that as well. And you can even record marks via that. So I'm talking about without Teams at the moment, Microsoft Teams. If you've got access to Microsoft Teams, so much better. Lucky you, because there's much more even than I'm going to show you here. Say setting tasks. Students can have their own area. They can upload their homeworks there. You can actually look at their notes. There's also a collaborative area where everyone can get involved as well. So, everyone can write this so they can work together, all in one package, along with your own notes as well, that you've shared with all students. What I'm talking about now can be shared with students, but they can't do anything with it. And they can't upload tasks or change it. So they're very much seeing your notebook and they can view it, which in itself is useful. But it's not quite, it's a little bit, a bit more restrictive than if you have access to Microsoft Teams. If you do have access to Microsoft Teams, good luck to you. There's lots you can do. And I will put a link up to some videos here which can help you get started with using OneNote with Microsoft Teams. But that's not what I'm going to talk about here. Okay. So, it's not final, it's going to take a little while. I'm going to do this question. I'm not really going to focus on the maths here. Maybe I won't even do it at all. Let's just imagine I want to do a diagram. The main thing I need to be able to do is write. So, let's just draw a graph. Now, it seems to me, 3 different options of drawing a graph here. One, I can use the inbuilt the kind of ability to draw circles. If I know what the graph looks like, that's quite helpful. So I can draw a 3D axis like that. Okay, I can draw a circle. It's definitely a circle. Change a colour, move it over there because I know it's going to be there because my maths is not too bad. I know what the graph is going to look like. Okay, and there we go. We've got our circle, and it does occur to me the tangent to it is going to be here. Oh, now I need to move my graph a bit because I can see when I draw the tangent there's not going to be enough room. So what I'm going to do is do this thing called lasso, move it so I can go on to draw my tangent, and I'm going to draw the tangent using the straight line tool. You could use, because there is ability to use straight lines, you could use that as well. But I find the ruler very helpful. It actually gives you this nice, it gives you the angle as well, which might be useful not particularly in this circumstance, but it might be useful somewhere else. So the question is essentially, let's extend these axes a bit further up because obviously I need a bit more, and it's probably easier to do that and do the whole thing again. So I can draw the axes a bit further up. There we go. I can extend my axes that way a bit as well. Make some on 0 degrees. There we go. That's fine. Let's extend it a bit so I could see. Right, okay. I can get rid of my ruler now. So there's another thing. Microsoft Whiteboard has a ruler, but Jamboard doesn't. So here we go, a nice use of the ruler there. And the question is essentially to find a coordinate of those 2 points. So I've drawn a graph that way. I could start, I don't think I'll do the whole question here because it's not really the point. I'm assuming you know how to do the maths. You might say, okay, I need to construct a line you need to construct the radius point here. And again, I might go back to ruler to get the radius in there, to draw the radius in nicely, so it's not a complete mess. There we go. That's one option you have for drawing a diagram for this, and this is a point 4a that I can annotate. Okay, that's one thing. I would not have been able to do that on any other piece of software as easily with all the other features within a note-taking app, with all the other features I've already talked about. That would not be possible. So that's one way of drawing our diagram. Right, what's that? The next way, and this is pretty amazing, really. What I do is I actually just type the equation out. So type draw. I don't have to type it. I can type it. That's the point. I don't tend to use typing very much, but you can type in and write notes and in OneNote. But here we go. I'm going to draw my X like that because it seems to be recognised easier that way. Equals 25. What I can do is select that. Okay, now on here, if I go to the maths things, it's recognised my equation. Now I can do, if I want to write the equation as text, I can do, so I can change it like that if it's important to you. I often don't use that because I don't see any problem with handwriting personally, but if you want to change it to text, that's fine, but that's not really the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that you can actually use the built-in graphing feature in OneNote. And here we go, I've got the graph for it. And if I put the insert on page, it'll dump it exactly below. It hasn't given me my tangent, but hey ho, that's, what do we want? Earth on the stick. Right, so I can draw the tangent in now if I want. So I can, again, go to ruler. Now I've got a slightly more accurate diagram. Obviously it's a bit less of a sketch and more of an actual kind of scale diagram. And I can draw the tangent in like that. Of course the points again have kind of gone off the axes a little bit, but there they are. There I've pointed, I've kind of done a nice little graph for the question. I haven't answered the question yet. I say I don't think I will on this video because I'm assuming you know how to do the question. Okay, there we go. So that's another option for drawing the graph if I want to. Word of warning, this is a relatively, the built-in graphing feature does involve, the graph will always be equal aspect, so it's fine for circles, but things where you really want the scale to be different on the different axes for you to see the graph in an appropriate way, this probably wouldn't be the thing. You'd either draw the graph like I've done, by hand, like I've done here, or you might use GeoGebra or Desmos. I use GeoGebra. It's particularly good with OneNote because you can actually embed the file itself. So you don't have to go to GeoGebra package itself. Get to a different application. Do that. You can actually embed something within OneNote. Of course, that is something you will have done in advance of your online lesson. You wouldn't embed it in front of the students. It's something you would prepare in advance. Again, I'm not going to talk about how to do it, but it can be done. I will put a link up now to, if you have a look up at the top of the screen, to some instructions on how to embed GeoGebra files into your OneNote, should that be a thing that you want to do. And here we go. This is my GeoGebra file that might, and this could actually lead to different activities here. So the point is here, this is within the package itself. I can still write notes on it. I can still scribble. This is my amazing GeoGebra file. So I can still use it as a whiteboard and scribble down, as I can do on all other features. I can still do that, but with this I can also now do the animation, and I can actually look at the graph. And if I click on that, it should in a moment go straight to GeoGebra without me having to do anything. I can change this is my own GeoGebra file I've uploaded to the system. I can change your ages to 5, and I can actually change the position to 5, and I can actually look at the point there, and I can actually dynamically change it on GeoGebra itself. Okay, so I probably would want to, in retrospect, change the axes, go back to GeoGebra and change the axes to make that more appropriate, because you can't do much with this file. You really need to have the finished article if you're doing it in GeoGebra. But if you get it right, it can make it much nicer, much slicker, and much more. What I find sometimes is if you're doing an online lesson, or even if you're in class and you've got this amazing GeoGebra file that you want to refer to, if that GeoGebra file then takes a little while to load from somewhere else or whatever, it's lost in the moment and the pace falls and those things. But with this embedding feature, I've kind of messed up a bit here because I haven't chose the scale particularly appropriately for the question. But I could at least now, if this had happened in a lesson, I might just say, right, well, we've done that question now. Let's make another question up. Let's just change the center to there, and let's change the radius to 4, say. Let's change the point, the tangent, to that point there, and then to away you go. Find out the intercepts or whatever, whatever. Okay, so I could just play around, but the point is it's embedded. Okay, that feature does need some preparation, and in retrospect I could have prepared that file a little bit nicer to actually be more appropriate for the activity. But there you go, those are some of the possibilities I've spoken about that GeoGebra can be used for, that OneNote can be used for, particularly for maths teachers. And unfortunately there isn't enough out. If you look on YouTube, there isn't enough there extolling the virtues of OneNote for maths teachers, because it's not made for maths teachers, but it's almost accidentally. I think Microsoft, by adding these features like the graphing function, has obviously got on to the fact that it is useful for maths teachers, because they're starting to add little features for maths teachers on it. But I don't think that's what they originally intended, like the ruler is useful, and the equation edit, the fact it can recognize and graph an equation is useful. It can even solve equations, and through Microsoft Forms actually make questions for you up. Shall I show that just before we go? Yeah, why not? So another feature for maths teachers, not something I use very much, to be honest, but GCSE would probably be used a lot more. Say you have let's make up a simultaneous simultaneous equation. You might see a GCSE x plus y equals 7. There you go. There's my simultaneous equation. I go there. I go to maths, and it's recognised my simultaneous equation. Hello, it hasn't. So what do? Do I abandon this, look completely stupid in front of everyone? Well, hopefully fix it will work, and I can circle that. Okay, I've told it it's plus, you silly Billy. Well, you should know it's plus. So I've got my equation written up, still quicker than if I typed it up. I go into maths, and here it will solve it. It will even show you the steps using whichever method is appropriate, probably elimination here. It will show you the steps, right through the steps. And this is, I haven't used this personally, but you might find it useful. Through Microsoft Forms, it actually generates a practice quiz. And there we go. It'll load on with 3 questions, generates quiz. So again, this produces an embedded form. So you don't have to go to a different application to do it. It's all within the same package. It's all under there. And, let's just see what the answer, I'll just guess the answers here. And we'll get instantaneous feedback. There we go, view results. Well, I got 1 right by chance, never a good idea to guess. actually did all right guessing one there. But anyway, it's not something I've used. It's something that I thought I'd mention. And I think there's for quadratic equations and various other features, it can produce quizzes like that. But that's not the main draw for me. Main draw, coming back to the top, is the graphing features really, and the fact that this can be used. It supports Inc. and embedding, and you can embed YouTube files and you can embed GeoGebra files actually within the package, which really basically speaks for a more fluid and dynamic online lesson, or indeed lesson in class, in my view, where you're not trying to piece together different bits from different applications. There's nothing worse. It's happened to me many times, but this seems to solve a lot of those issues. And they say none of the whiteboards I've seen have these drawing features with them. Some things I haven't even mentioned. The form of erasers we can have. We've got the normal. We can have an eraser which strikes through. We'll erase the whole of a line that I've drawn. So if I've drawn a little highlight here, it will erase it in one go like that. But if I don't want, let's go back to eraser. If I don't want that, let's do undo. If I don't want that and I only want to kind of take out a little bit of it, I can take out bits of it by choosing a different option. So there's so many different features. I can resize, although I can resize my objects easier as well using lasso select. I can resize. Now, not all of these. Some of these you can do in other applications like your Jamboard or your Microsoft Whiteboard, but certainly not all of them. And the main thing it won't do for me is embed, and it doesn't have facilities to draw lines, axes and circles on Jamboard. So that would mean I would have to copy and paste it from somewhere else, which in the best will in the world is not always the best way of doing things. Okay, so hopefully I've extolled the virtues of using OneNote as a tool for maths teaching. It's a notebook, it's a whiteboard, and it can be shared with students. Hopefully I've promoted it enough. Okay, there we go. Bye.